Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, this word that I've been using a whole lot when it comes to Democrats, and especially Democrat politicians, is the word emboldened. They feel emboldened as if they can do anything and get away with it. And you know what? They feel that way because it's true. They can. Hillary Clinton's lawyer, Mr. Michael Sussman, lied to the FBI and pushed one of the most divisive and destructive political hit jobs, political conspiracies, whatever you want to call it, probably the biggest political scandal in modern American history, and the guy gets off without a slap on the wrist, literally nothing, not even a slap on the wrist. Democrats and of course their allies feel like they can do and say anything and get away with it, and that's because they do. The media can push whatever hoax, whatever BS it wants, whatever propaganda, whatever hit piece and slander and defamation, and most of the time they get away with it, and when they don't, in the case of Nicholas Sandmann, they settle, they pay him a couple $1 million, call it a day, and move on and continue to lie. They get away with all of it, and one of the most egregious things that we have seen recently is the fabrication of evidence. Again, we go straight back to Hillary Clinton, how John Durham suspects that the internet traffic logs, or the server traffic logs, connected to the supposed Trump server in Trump Tower, well, he believed that the data must have been manipulated and was not plausible. That's a direct quote. Democrats have been caught multiple times fabricating evidence. We've seen it with Adam Schiff in Congress 2 times. Once during an impeachment trial, he inaccurately paraphrased, and didn't even paraphrase, he just kind of invented it as he went on, fabricating a phone call between Donald Trump and the president of Ukraine in order to cast Donald Trump as a criminal, and then a couple months later, or about a year later, he presents doctored evidence once again in front of Congress. Well, now we see it again. And excuse me for the long-winded intro, but context is important here. The track record of their lies and their dishonesty and the deception is important, and it's relevant to what we're about to discuss. Nancy Pelosi's hearing, her 1-6 commission hearing, which Democrats are describing as the primetime hearing, well, they were just caught fabricating evidence, not once, but on 2 specific occasions, and possibly even a third as Donald Trump chimes in and says,
"You are fake news."
Sir, let me show you guys what's going on here. Once again, my apologies for the long intro, so let's get into it. Take a look at this right over here. Breaking exclusive, January 6th committee hearing liars edited out footage last night of Ashley Babbitt and Roseanne Boylan's endings from key witness testimony. See the leaked video here. Now, I can't show you guys the video, it's not exactly safe for YouTube, but let's just read the article. Treacherous, treasonous criminals, the unselect January 6th committee, disgraced themselves in the nation on primetime TV last night. They brought British filmmaker Nick Quested onto the stand as one of their key witnesses and presented his footage to the public edited in the most manipulated fashion possible to leave out the most compelling content he shot that day. The bodies of United States veteran Ashley Babbitt and Roseanne Boylan. Do they think the American people are stupid? A complete version of Quested's footage was released by a source to the public this morning. It contains never-before-seen footage of Roseanne Boylan and Ashley Babbitt's bodies. Here it is. I can't show you guys, but this is truly dystopian stuff. They used this man's footage to push one specific narrative and chose very clearly, very deceitfully, to omit probably the most important thing from the footage that he shot. You know, Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and so many other Democrats, even recently as a couple weeks ago, have been pushing this false lie, this narrative, that Trump supporters took the lives of so many Capitol police officers, which never happened. The only one who lost his life was Brian Sicknick a day later to unrelated causes. I believe he had a stroke. Meanwhile, multiple protesters and Trump supporters were lost on that day. I mean, could you imagine if that was a Black Lives Matter riot and police officers had taken the lives of unarmed black men or women or any leftist activists? Could you imagine the outcry? But when it happens to a Trump supporter, better edit out the footage so the American people don't see, because we don't want them sympathizing with those evil, deplorable Trump supporters that we've castigated in society as these terrible, un-American extremists and threats to democracy. I mean, just when you thought this kangaroo court couldn't get any worse, it does. They cannot make their case without altering the facts, altering the evidence. That's because they don't have a case, and they're lying, and they can do so with basic immunity, just like Adam Schiff has. Adam Schiff has been at these hearings and these committees, and he has presented straight up falsified evidence, and nothing has ever happened. And so obviously they know that they could do the same thing, and they're offering no chance for rebuttal. There's nobody on the other side who can make the other case. The 2 Republicans who are part of this hearing aren't Republicans at all. They're rhinos. knows? They hate Donald Trump and they want to see him gone forever. They have sided with the Democrats and sided with Nancy Pelosi and are willing to lie to achieve their ends. I told you guys that that wasn't the first piece of manipulated evidence. There's also this. Watch. Liz Cheney blatantly omits portion of President Trump's tweet to manipulate facts and sway public opinions.
Donald Trump tweeted, but he did not condemn the attack. Instead, he justified it. These are the things and events that happen, he said, when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who've been badly and unfairly treated for so long. As you will see in the hearings to come, President Trump believed his supporters at the Capitol, and I quote, "We're doing what they should be doing."
But she very conveniently neglected the part, here I'll just read it from the town hall tweet. Liz Cheney reads a Trump tweet from January 6th, but neglects to finish reading the tweet which reads, "Go home with love in peace." I feel like that's really important context. I mean, what a terrible human being. Not just a bad politician, not just a liar, just a bad person. And how are we supposed to believe anything that lying Liz Cheney says? She's also been pushing this totally uncorroborated report of Donald Trump cheering on particular statements or chants that happen on that day in relation to Mike Pence. But now Trump comes out and confirms that Liz Cheney lied during testimony. I never said that or even thought of saying anything like the individuals were chanting outside the Capitol. Nothing but lies. And this was the major point of the video that I made yesterday in relation to the January 6th hearing. There's no evidence. They keep saying that there's evidence, but everything that they say is hearsay or reports. And now we're talking about altered evidence, falsified narratives and falsified reports and falsified doctored evidence. In other words, not evidence at all. You know, Liz Cheney kept saying that every day that goes by, the evidence is going to be more and more damning and more convincing, which, by the way, I'm told that apparently this Liz Cheney, Nancy Pelosi clown show is supposedly going on for weeks, which is a complete joke in and of itself. But she told us that the evidence was going to be compelling and it was going to get even better as the days go on. Well, it's getting even worse. It's getting even more unethical, and it's getting even more deceitful. Even Democrat lawyer Alan Dershowitz is saying the same thing.
And even if you say it was one-sided, it was unethical. Why was it unethical? Take, for example, President Trump's speech on January 6th. I opposed that speech. I didn't think it was done well. I didn't think he should have done it. But he said at the end of the speech he wanted people to show their voices patriotically and peacefully. They doctored the tape. They edited those words out. If a prosecutor ever did that, they'd be disbarred. You can't present part of a tape and deliberately omit the rest of the tape in order to mislead the audience, especially when the other side has no opportunity to cross-examine, no opportunity to put this on its own evidence. There's a special ethical obligation not to cheat, not to defraud the viewers. And that's exactly what the Democrats with their two Republicans. And, you know, Donald Trump committed no crimes.
And again, I don't know how they get away with this. Stephen Scalise had a take on it.
Pelosi, who paid this Hollywood producer? Because it's against the law to use taxpayer funds to produce a documentary trying to promote their political agenda or go after their political opponents. And we haven't really heard an answer. You know, who paid this guy? We know who he is. So I think the question of who did pay him and how much did he get paid and how did that transaction even occur is an interesting question because there may be violations of law.
And I totally agree with him. What kind of trial or court or legal hearing that's trying to convince the American public or even convince the DOJ to pursue criminal charges against particular individuals needs to hire a publicity expert, an expert producer and storyteller to push their one specific narrative? It's a kangaroo court, folks. In fact, it's such an utter disgrace and such an utter disaster that even once again, Democrat Chris Wallace, which we can now say CNN's Chris Wallace, he's right where he belongs. Well, even he is deflating their narrative that the January 6th hearing will prove earth-shattering claims. That's a bad look. And the earth-shattering claims, as we know now, is some random, anonymous, uncorroborated report of something that Donald Trump said, Liz Cheney reading Donald Trump tweets, but omitting the most important key part of context of that tweet and using doctored video footage to push a narrative. And all of it produced by a fancy director who's trying to tell a story, and clearly a fantasy story at that. Not only is this stuff disgusting and disgraceful, but it should be, or it ought to be, illegal. The question remains, how do they get away with this stuff? And another question that remains is, how are these Democrats still saying stuff like this? Obama just recently in Copenhagen, we have to take steps to detoxify our discourse, particularly the scourge of disinformation, conspiracy theories, and hate online.
We have to take steps to detoxify our discourse, particularly the scourge of disinformation and conspiracy theories and hate online that has polluted our political discourse.
I don't know, Obama. You mean like the scourge of disinformation and conspiracy theories, like what's going on right now at the January 6th hearing with all of your friends and allies? And maybe all the hate online with all of these divisive, out-of-their-mind wacko leftists issuing calls to violence and other wacko stuff non-stop on every social media platform? If that's what you mean, then yeah, you're right. But it's not. And that makes you just as much of a disgrace as everybody who's part of the January 6th committee. We are living through some very, very weird times, folks. These lefty authoritarians are becoming more emboldened, more powerful, and you know they're authoritarians and you know they're bullies when stories like this are happening. Washington Commanders fined defensive coach Jack Del Rio $100,000 for calling January 6th Capitol riot a dust-up and comparing it to the George Floyd riots. They enforce, with force, it's the proper word, their ideas and their narratives. They push propaganda and alter evidence to attack their political opponents, and every single year they're looking more and more like the CCP as they continue to embrace and employ Soviet tactics. Absolutely despicable. That's what I got for you guys, though. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe. I'm going to get back to work. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.